fruition throughout the early summer months. And we also talked about the cost of that while we were considering this, and I did a little research. Most school districts do pay a portion of the cost, and it's normally roughly around half for that officer. That's most of the other school districts pay about half. We weren't really at that point. We were at, and I don't know who negotiated this. Again, this is many years ago. We were like 37,000 and change, I believe, something like that. And it never had been renegotiated. So I wanted to talk with them about that, and just being fair about cost. So if you get a chance to look at the agreement, which is basically the same agreement except for that additional and the monies that you're seeing there. Now, Superintendent Bear wants to pay half. That's what you see the percentage increase. That's kind of the goal, is to get to about half of the salary of an officer. And when we say half, it's kind of the middle of the road in the pay scale. It's kind of what we go on, just to be completely fair about that. And the school district wants to pick up that cost. So we had agreed, or had come to an agreement to get us to that point, so to speak. That's why you're seeing the 3% per year and not the half of the salary right off to get, right from the get-go, so to speak. But the need for an additional SRO has been there for quite some time. Actually, our school district is growing. The problem that we have at the police department is our school resource officer is at the high school almost all of their time, so they have very little time to get to the other schools in the district. I would say over 90% of their time, and that's probably even on the light side. So the idea is to get another officer in the grade school, the middle school, all these other places in the district to get to know the officer, and there's all kinds of benefits for that, you can, as I'm sure you're aware. So I was hoping that council would allow me to sign this agreement tonight. If you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer those.
I have a question. So is this just within the schools inside the city limits?
No,
or?
It's the entire school district.
Okay, because I know in the past, I used to work for the school district 18 years ago, and then when I left, they used to use the county sheriff did Welch's and Boring, and were in some of those schools because I hooked up their computers for them, and so they were there. Is that relationship not going on anymore between the school district and the county?
Oh, they have a relationship with the county, but the Oregon Trail School District, and this started when our city manager, we'd kind of, the idea was to, if we're working within the schools within the city, we want to be on the same safety plan everywhere, which includes all kinds of different active shooter training. We train all their staff. We still do this, and it just makes sense for everybody to be on the same page. Now, will they respond to some incidents? Of course they will. I've spoke to the sheriff about this in a meeting not too long ago, and I'm trying to get them more involved, but the school district wants Sandy Police Department there.
Right, that's fine. I was just wondering more of if there was money coming from the county at that time to go towards a resource officer, will they help pay for that on this side of things, or is the city going to bear the cost for those other schools outside the city limits?
Well, we will bear the cost, but as you can see in here, that cost is about half, or will be at that point.
Well, if I could clarify too, so their half would pay for most of the school year, a little less than, because they get this officer for not quite nine months,
pretty close.
And then the rest of the year they'd be in town working patrol.
So
And
is it?
They don't have an SRO from the county at the other schools.
Okay, they
No, it
don't
does not.
anymore, right?
Yes.
'Cause they did years ago when I
Yeah,
worked
they
there.
haven't had since I've been here.
Right.
So is it 50% we're headed for those 9 months, and then we pay 100% of the other 3, or is it 50% of the entire year?
It's the entire year.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Do that. And then at any time we do any kind of response outside of the city, I know we have some agreements to do adjacent things, if something happens just outside. how involved would the resource officers and our own officers be if it were something like happening in Welch's? That's quite a distance away from
Well,
the city.
that all depends on what type of response you're talking about. We have mutual agreements with the county, of course, and we get help from the state police. If we have that big call, that active shooter type
Nobody
call,
wants that.
heaven forbid, then yes, but the officers in the city will go, and as will the school resource officers, along with probably other
Probably cops,
officers in the
yeah,
area,
oh, yeah.
whoever's
Down the
nearby.
mountain. Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Chief, would a complicated, say, criminal case that was non-emergent, but requiring a lot of detective time, that's in one of those schools, would still be investigated by the county, and the cost of that would be borne by them?
Yes, the initial report would most likely be taken as a courtesy report by our officer, but then it would be distributed to the county. They'd take it from there.
Okay.
Now, this 50%, does that include ancillary costs, benefits and retirement?
That's the idea. That
Okay.
is the complete cost, 50% of the total.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not, like I said, we're not there yet, but the goal is to get there, and the school is going to do that.
Okay.
So, Chief, I'm aware that we're a little tight on our budget. We have a situation happening here this fall that's going to create even more tightness. How's that going to do your budget if we're paying more than 50% at first, correct? And then also we have a little issue there with the returning officers. How's that doing with your budget?
Yeah, well, this actually is going to help us.
It's a piece of the pie.
Go ahead. Okay.
Because of the contract ending in Estacada and having to absorb those officers back here, this actually helps. Because the school district is going to take some of that cost.
Okay.
If this works out and we get another SRO, then some of that cost, the school district will actually be picking up. So in our budget, it actually helps.
Okay.
And we did have an SRO in Estacada, didn't we?
Yeah.
So essentially, we're just going to be transferring them to Sandy.
Essentially, yes.
Mhm.
It may not be the same person.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So, I'm still trying to figure out the math here, and forgive me. You say 50%. I read here $43,000. I'm sorry, per SRO. Is that correct?
It's per. Yes.
Per. Okay, I missed the per part. That makes a big difference in the math.
Yeah, and like I'd mentioned earlier, that's not half yet. We're attempting to get there, and they agreed to do the 3% per year, and that's kind of the idea. We want to get to 50%.
And then continuing after they get to the 50% as 3%, because we have, inflation.
Yes.
And those type of things. Is that built into the
It's
payment,
into-
or is this a 43,000 is a set mark, but does it have based for future years of inflation on top of them getting to 50%?
It's 3% at this current time
Mhm.
throughout this until we're not gonna. I'm not trying to have the school pay more than 50%. I think
No.
that's fair. So when we get to that point, we're gonna have to take another look at that later on down the road when we get. I'm thinking it's gonna take at least 3 or 4 years to get to that halfway point. When we do, then we may look at this again, the cost.
Okay.
Chief Roberts, I have a question here, and that's, we at our church, we've just had Clackamas County Sheriff show up as it's a visible deterrent. And I think that's been one of the great things of just having a uniformed officer there. Have you guys looked at, or would you consider explorers for some of the schools? You have students, you do see young people that are in a program learning to be police officers. Is this anything viable to have just a physical deterrent there?
Not at the current time. Unfortunately, it's not. We used to have an Explorer program.
Oh.
There's a lot of issues there's a lot of training issues, there's a lot of liability issues, and we got to a point where it did not make sense for the city.
Okay.
We had one for many years, and we just couldn't sustain it.
Okay.
So we do have a reserve program, of course, and we're attempting to build that up a little bit, but that also has its budgetary issues as well.
Okay,
And explorers are minors. You can't
Okay.
really use them in that capacity.
okay.
One last question on the termination. We're giving the ability for 30-day termination from either party, including the district, so they could at any point in time say we don't want to do this anymore?
Yes.
And give 30 days?
Yes.
30 days seems awfully short for a contract like this. I give out contracts for ISP and other things, and you have to terminate a year in advance. So,
I did have the city attorney look at the contract, and it's basically the same one that it was in 2011, and he didn't seem to have a problem with that, but if council wants, I could, I'm sure Superintendent Bear wouldn't have a problem with, looking into this. I mean, wouldn't have an issue with it, but if council does, then I'm certainly willing to take that back and re-present it again with that.
well, I think it's just a little
Longer.
short. 90 days would probably be a little bit more palatable for figuring out what we're going to do if the council, changes on our end, because we could get in a situation where we have in the past, where some of us sit up here long enough, we've seen the history, and people change over, and what happens in the history, there.
It is possible, but
Don't wanna do that,
I don't
so.
foresee that with the school district, but it's possible.
We've had different superintendents before.
So what happened to, in the Estacada contract, they have a similar termination time?
No, it's completely different.
It is quite a bit longer than this one? Okay. So that-
We have a different agreement. Their SRO, the SRO there has a different agreement than this.
What is it, like 90 days or 100
It's
days?
attached to the original contract, so.
But the contract in Estacada was a termination of how long? They had to give us termination
9 months.
9 months.
So, yeah, so that makes some sense. I guess I'm
That
in Jeremy's
wasn't-
fault.
That wasn't for the SRO.
No,
That
but
was for
it's,
the entire contract.
But I'm in Jeremy's boat, I think, in this one, too. I think it would be well worth it, from my viewpoint, give us a bit more time to make some changes, because if we get unloaded, then we're talking about 1 or 2 more officers with 30 days to resolve that. I can imagine that would be hard pressed on your budget, so. I'm not sure what the best time would be, but certainly more than 30 for me.
Okay.
I'd like to see
Fine.
90-day minimum. That was really the only concern I had with the contract, was the termination clause is relatively brief. And I'd like for us to have some time to be able to scramble if we had to figure things out.
Yeah.
If we could get the school district to commit to the 90 days, if that's what council wants,
Mhm.
can the chief go ahead and make that modification and do a signature then?
I'm okay
As far
with
as
it.
I'm concerned, yeah.
I'm okay.
we need to make a motion. And
Please.
I'm gonna try to do this. Hold on.
All right, here we go. Hold on.
What numbers?
I'm trying to find the dumb thing.
It is 6.2.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna figure it out.
Did anything pop up on your screens?
Negative.
No,
Okay.
all I see is an
I'm
output.
gonna try it one more time. If it doesn't,
Nope.
Nope.
no,
Got
okay.
it. I got something here.
Something's coming up, yeah.
We've got Gene Cubic moved it.
Okay, and then
I'll
I need
second
someone to
it.
second it,
Oh,
and then you can all,
okay.
There's a new way of doing it.
new way of doing it, yep.
So,
It would appear that it is unanimous for.
I think I'd like to still hear the voice roll call for everybody sitting out here, as this is kind of a secret ballot type thing, and that's
Yeah, I think
not
the
appropriate.
public should be able
Is
to
it
hear.
easy for you to see, Mayor, who
Yes.
motioned it? So do you want to call it out when who motioned it, or do you want
Sure.
them to say they're gonna motion it and then motion it?
Oh, I can just say it, and
Okay.
that'll abbreviate things a little
Okay.
bit. So motion by Gene, second by Scott, that we approve the contract with the provisions of the termination clause, allowing the chief to sign it with the school district
within 90 days.
with the 90 days,
90
yes.
days.
And the vote was unanimous, so.
Just for clarity here, Gene was hot on the trigger there. I didn't see, I assume that there's a spot for a move, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And it seems to me that if we did that, it didn't look like there was an opportunity without her saying something about the 90 days, for example, that was an amendment to that.
That's what the city recorder will take
Right,
care
that's
of.
in my notes, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
But we need to be able to communicate that amongst us, though, because
Right.
in a motion to move, you can add things to it, subtract things.
Exactly right.
But then you can counter those things
Right.
too, and go back and forth in your voting, whether or not to agree or to table it and reopen it again.
Yep, yep.
Well,
So
so
before
I
the
think
voting, maybe
before we
question?
actually vote here then.
Ask the question.
We will ask the questions, we will ask for the motion, the second, and then I will verbally call for the vote. We can do it audibly and electronically at the same time, and then we can announce the results.
The upside about the electronic portion is that it tracks the results into the meeting minutes. So somebody who's interested in how did my council member perform over the course of their tenure? How did they vote on things? Do I like them or not? Do I want to?
But
keep
isn't
them
that
or
what they're
not?
already doing? Because it's in the minutes already.
It's yay or nay. It's not necessarily by person, by topic.
Okay.
In the old minutes.
Yeah, unless it's a roll call
It was just it
vote.
passed or didn't unless it
Oh.
was a roll call vote. Because you just say yay, we don't, right? Or unanimous, but that, there's no type of tracking or statistical report later, and this will give us that.
Okay. Is that like a council policy now, that your statement, which I assume it's in place now, is that something we need to document, or is it just something that we're going
Well,
to use? for
it'll be in the
here?
minutes, and I'll just try to remember to do
I'd like
it
to
that
fill
way.
this out first. I'm
Yeah.
not sold on this.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little anxiety about this system, so, I'm a tech guy, so it just, yeah.
Okay, well, let's
It's
try it a few more
changed.
times. Work our way
It's
through.
changed, but
Okay.
it's different.
Let's see if Andy's ready. I got the nod? Okay. Resolution 2018-20.
Good evening. I am going to take you old school.
Oh, man, we just.
How many
I know,
trees did you have to
listening.
kill for that?
I'm sorry, we tried to add
Thank
it,
you.
but we couldn't add it after the fact. What I provided you was due by Tuesday, and my board meeting was Wednesday, so I could not add our final project list, prioritized that they approved to the agenda. So what you have, so I tried to give you a lot of information in the packet, and it may have even been a little too much information, because I know there were a lot of numbers in there. But essentially, the rules were signed July 1st for the transit funding part of the transportation package. And ODOT had set a 3-month rolling period from the date that the rules were signed. Within 3 months, they would take applications for projects. TriMet had actually misunderstood that rolling 3 months and thought that we had until January. And so they had said they needed projects from Clackamas County, our project list voted on and approved by October. In June, they learned they had misunderstood that, and since the signing happened in July, they need our project list by August, mid-August. And what happens is my board, this project list that you have in front of you has been approved by my board as the project list that we will enter into Clackamas County's project list that fall under TriMet. So just to clarify, the way this funding will happen is what they are calling a qualified entity, which for us is TriMet. They will get the funding and distribute it out to their district. In order to have that happen, my board approves our projects. It goes on to a Clackamas County committee that we have just put together. We met for the first time on the 10th and made the bylaws and the charter, and we will meet again on the 24th, show them all our project list, and that committee will then also approve it, and then it will be turned into TriMet. So we're on a very fast track here, and I apologize for that. Essentially though, we met back in January. We had a transit workshop, if you recall, that I brought essentially these same projects before you and said, I'm not sure what my funding is yet, but do you feel like we're in the right direction? Is there anything that you feel is missing in the transit system or that we don't have planned? So you're not really seeing that much new. The first $44,000 that's projected for the city of Sandy is a half a year, so it's July 1st to December of this year. That's why it's less than the biennium after. And what my board and I have decided is with that degree of funding, since it's not a lot, it's really hard to put a lot of service on the road for $44,000, that we will use that funding to take care of some internal infrastructure that's not gotten priorities over the years, because frankly, we were putting tires on the road and waiting to get new computers. We have a couple of dispatch computers still operating on XP, for example. So we've taken those into a cost. We hope to put some improvements to buses. Part of that, I know council has always wanted Wi-Fi on board, so that is included in the price that you see for bus and bus stop improvements, as well as some signage. Our transit tax software was created a long time ago and is an Access database and really needs to be replaced. We've been actually looking into whether we can create a module off of the Encode software that's used in the finance department to see if we can not do some double entries and things of that nature. So our plan, as you have before you, the reason you see 115% projection is we've been asked by ODOT, we've been given numbers based on our payroll collection already, and then they believe that it may come in higher than expected because this 44 is a really low number. They think it'll take a while for businesses and whatnot to become compliant and, you know, for it to go through. They also have quite a large chunk, although I'm not sure the exact amount, coming right off the top by the Department of Revenue, because the Department of Revenue will be collecting this tax on their behalf. So they've given us a low number, and then they've asked us to project to 115%, because although we can roll money over if it comes in higher than expected, we can't if it's not shown in a plan. So it has to be called out. Money does not, it's not entitlement. We don't get it because it was generated in Sandy. We have to show how we would intend to use it, and it has to be voted on and approved. That is in a plan, and it is a valid use of the funds. So the capacity planning construction line that you see across the bottom is a larger project that I will definitely make those infrastructure improvements and then move into adding service by January of 2019. Which you see here. It'll be a shopper shuttle extension, a SAM later service, an Estacada run, and then anything extra, like I said, that is allowed to be banked will go into this capacity planning construction. We are running out of admin room in the ops center on the transit side. We also, I would love to have a restroom and a training room that's a little more private for the drivers. Currently, they use a shared room in the admin building, so if they're at lunch or on break, they're right in the middle of all of our offices. So we have been talking about adding that type of space, and this would help us plan for that and save for the construction of that.
Why is it we are having to deal with TriMet? TriMet was, you mentioned that they had a different time, what they thought, and then we still have to work with TriMet, it has to go present to TriMet, and now we left TriMet altogether, we're not part of Metro or the TriMet area, so why is everyone still having it? Did the state just give everything to TriMet and let TriMet do like a Region 1 type transportation aspect of it, because they're the biggest dog in the...
Yep.
Well, there's actually several qualified entities. The way it's written is if you are a mass transit district, which is TriMet, then you are in charge of your region and you will sub-allocate the funds. If your region doesn't have a mass transportation district but a county does, then it would fall to the county. So actually, Washington County right now is scrambling, frankly, because they're also under TriMet and they don't currently provide public transportation.
Hmm.
So, but they can now begin to provide it and use these funds to do it. Luckily, Clackamas County, we have plans. Sandy has.
Because the one
some
line that goes
plans.
up to Timberline is Clackamas County's only?
Well, I mean, Clackamas County as in general, as a region, we have 5 providers.
Oh,
so
you
we
mean
have
not-
plans to draw from and.
Not
and
Clackamas
draw
County
from.
proper, but we have other people in Clackamas County. then.
Right.
Okay.
But I will say there is a large chunk that falls to the parts of Clackamas County that does not have transportation currently, that funding will go to the county to figure out what to do with it.
Okay, I don't have any real concerns about the projects or the priority of them, but just for clarity speaking, when you said your board, that's the board that is here on the city, and I know you said approved, but I suspect you meant recommended to be approved? Because the council is the one that has that authority.
Yes,
to
it's a,
approve.
they are in agreement that these are their recommended projects to you.
When I heard
Yes.
approved, I thought it sounded a little bit like you hadn't really gone through the council yet, but not trying to be dictatorial
you.
here, but
No, thank you.
make sure we
for
get
that
the
correction.
terminology right. So really, if we have anything left over, it's going to go to the capacity planning, which sounds like it's a really sharp, good place to put it, so, yeah. That's all I had.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
I have a couple questions. So on this, this 7 criteria, I was waiting for you to talk
Yes.
about some of those. Do you want to go through that before I fire questions off?
Sure. So I put the 7 criteria in here because all of the projects that you choose, and I keep saying projects, but that's the ODOT terminology of, when I fill out this application, Shopper Shuttle Extension will be considered a project. Sam Later Service will be a project. And all of those projects have to prove that they are doing these things, and these will have outcome measurements tied to them. So I have to show that I'm serving parts of my community that are 200% above poverty, for example, which when you do a map overlay of the SAM route is our commercial corridor. So we're good there. G was added later, and part of our Shopper Shuttle extension, what we plan to do is run it possibly by the high school. So we would do this part of town for 30 minutes and then cover this part of town the next 30 minutes instead of always the south end of town. And that way, especially if we extend the hours, we can time it perfectly for when they get out of high school.
Okay.
I did leave for you in there, and it does not apply to us, is D, that you need to procure buses that are powered by natural gas, electricity, or other low or no emission. That is to populations of 200,000 or more, so it doesn't apply to us, but I left it because it is becoming such a push from the state for everyone that I think it's important that we always see what's coming in the future. Right now, they're only asking it of the bigger organizations that can really afford it, but eventually will.
Is the 200,000 within your footprint of your service area, or is that a city?
Within your district.
Within your district,
And there's actually a clarifying question about that, but our understanding right now is that it's in your district.
I'm assuming that currently, just on that same subject, that our emissions are well within the Portland Metro ODOT standards? And we're not
Absolutely.
problems.
Absolutely.
So big billowing smoke stacks coming out of the back of those
No, our
buses are...
buses actually burn very clean.
Okay,
They're still diesel. They're still diesel powered.
okay.
It's all right.
So you had some questions, Scott?
No, I thought
That's
we
it?
kind of
Okay.
worked through those, so I'm quite happy with it.
I had a question. The TriMet lift used to come into Boring, which was the closest they would come, to serve people with disabilities and provide door-to-door servicing to jobs and appointments. Is there, with the new funding, is there any talks to try to bring them out again?
So, Boring voted to withdraw from the TriMet district, and they, to date, have not replaced it with any other service. And that's why Lyft is no longer in Boring. This funding is primarily aimed at building connectivity and making sure that throughout the state, you can get from A to B. There was a lot of conversation and intent with the legislature that they wanted to keep this language aimed at low income and frequency building, getting rid of gaps in service, connectivity, and they did not want to necessarily start muddying the water with what we call elderly and disabled funds, because mainly that is a separate stream of funding in Oregon, and they did not want to see that go away because of this funding. So they've tried to kind of keep them separate, if that makes sense. This will help agencies with those costs because they can, some agencies, like we have a Dial-A-Ride, some agencies only run a Dial-A-Ride type service. And so they would be eligible to apply for that through this funding. But it's not necessarily that dialed in
Right.
to that population.
Right, because the Dial-A-Ride has limitations that Lyft doesn't have.
Right, right.
So, I mean, as as people age and as Sandy grows and serves, more diverse community, it just would seem like that's something we want to look at.
So Sandy does have a Dial-A-Ride service that
Right.
mirrors Lyft. Our program is very similar to Lyft. And we also have a medical rides program that if you cannot get the service in the Sandy area, we will take you to OHSU for $2.
And you can use it daily, like people with disabilities use, like I used to work with somebody who is sight impaired every day. So our service does do that also?
Yes. It's somewhat limited in that because of the availability, and we do have to take into consideration, the needs of one person versus the needs of many. But for the most part, we do have people on a schedule using our Dial-A-Ride.
Is that within our city limits, though?
Within 3 miles
3 miles of the city limits?
of the center of city.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it does go outside a
It
little
does go
bit.
outside.
It probably wouldn't go all the way to Boring.
Or Portland.
Actually.
Or Portland, yeah.
Well, so just to make it more complicated, the source of funding that I mentioned that they didn't want touched, there is a pot of that funding that the Sandy Community Center, Senior Center, has access to. And what they do is they sign up people, and it's specifically Boring residents, and we provide the service on their behalf. And then they are billed by Roadjoy, my contractor, and they're also billed by me for gas and vehicle.
So Andy?
There is some service, but it's not what it should be, which is recognized in the transit industry.
So Andy, I know there's transit taxes being collected for the Boring area. And some of them are not, but for example, realtors are having some sort of transit tax being collected for that area. My guess is that there's some money anyway. Do you know what that money is being charged to, since they are no longer in the Boring area, being serviced by TriMet? Is there a pot developing there that they will eventually use, or?
The only thing that
If you don't know, that's fine. It's kind of
what I think I know.
Okay.
Is that there is a section of Boring that's in the metro region, and they could still be paying for TriMet service.
My guess is even incidentally, or maybe by mistake, there's transit taxes going in. They're probably spending some of their tax money towards TriMet anyway, because we have realtors, for example, in this Sandy area that are, I think most of them are paying to Sandy, but some of them are also paying in downtown for Metro. I'm just wondering, that pot is growing and growing. Eventually, it's going to have to be dealt with some way.
If they are paying a transit tax and they're not paying it to the city of Sandy, they're most likely paying it to TriMet.
Those
But I would
monies-
have to see.
Okay.
So for realtors, for example, they can make it, they can make a decision.
Go with
Realtors in Sandy, if you hang your shingle in Sandy, then you can pay Sandy,
Yeah.
which saves you about 20%, frankly. But if they sell 90% of their homes in the TriMet area, they can choose to pay their transit tax to the TriMet district because they can assume that their work was based in the TriMet area.
Mhm.
To Sandy, we assume that your work is based in your office, where your office is.
Okay. I may ask for some more questions, but we'll do it outside of the council.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
Thanks.
Any more
More
questions?
questions?
Comments? Motions?
I could motion that we'd recommend or the 2018-20 request for the funding.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Jan, that we approve Resolution 2018-20 in support of requesting funding through the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund to enhance Sandy transit service and improve connectivity. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And as soon as our screens pop up.
I was waiting for that.
So while we're waiting, maybe I
Where's
can
that?
get tech support to come up here. I've got screen problems, so. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
You have to put a request in.
Is that right? Oh, floor, okay, there. So I can't get my screen to go up there. Put this out of the way.
How about if I press F for 4? No,
So
that doesn't work.
I'm not, yeah, I'm trying to get it to fill the screen up.
Part of Maureen's one.
Perfect.
Move that.
Okay, as soon as we get Carl's IT problem lined out, we'll go to the Bluff Road Rehabilitation Project.
Go ahead. I can see
Thank
all
you,
that.
Andy. Keep up the good work.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I can keep this short and simple.
Thank you.
We received no bids, so there's nothing to award.
Oh,
But if there's questions about, we had 4 actual contractors pick up the plans on the plan holders list, and maybe another 4 subs. And so, we thought that was pretty good. Everything's very tight, very busy right now, so we thought it was good having 4 people actually pick up plans, but nobody submitted any bids. And I did speak with a subcontractor that was curious about who got the bid.
mhm.
I told him nobody bid, and so he said that was he was an electrical subcontractor. And he said that was the second job that week where he had supplied a sub bid to a general contractor, and the general contractor did not submit the bid, so it's just indicative.
Too small of
the,
too small a project for them,
well, I
as
don't
busy
know
as
if
they
it was
are.
the time of year, the size of the project. I mean, I think a $200,000 project is a pretty big deal.
Mhm.
So,
But it is for us at least. But I think it was either, just everybody's busy and nobody's interested in
I think, yeah, busy, the wrong time of year, but just in overall, I know we have schools out there in our county that have done the same thing. They went out for bid, no one applied. They went out and begged everyone, went out, back out, and still no one applied for it, and just decided to scrap the whole project for another year because they can't get people to bid on projects.
So what's your recommendation here then?
We'll bid it out again.
Okay.
And even if we bid it out again now, we wouldn't be able to get anybody started before school was in session, and we don't want to be doing.
Don't want to tie up that intersection,
One
yeah.
block area of Bluff Road while school's in session.
That would be crazy.
So we'll take another run at it in 2019.
Mike,
Thank
do you
you,
have
Mike.
any other contracts that are in that same boat that you're seeing coming down the pipe?
Well, we're trying to get a paving contract out. We've given up on the slurry seal, and nobody will touch that. Camby had a $900,000 overlay project that they just bid out. They got 2 bids. They were both, one of them was a local company. So, that's
Wow.
pretty substantial.
Were they really high? Or-
And they were much higher.
Yeah.
That's the result.
Yeah, we gotta watch the
Fewer-
timing.
Less competition, higher price.
They're all down on I-5 and I-84 right now,
I can imagine, yeah.
jamming up Portland.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
All right, we come to the consent agenda.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as it is written.
I'll second it.
Motion by Carl, second by Jeremy, that we approve the consent agenda as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And are we getting a,
Take it just a second.
okay. Oh. Okay. That's starting to move along.
Yeah.
Report from the city manager.
So in the last meeting, there was some conversation about doing a better job at communications with our citizens, so I kind of gave that some thought. And one of the issues that we identified is that several departments do a newsletter, but the way that you sign up for or that newsletter is pushed out are all different in different formats. Our current website does have a portal that allows you to sign up for any newsletter or types of information that you would like to receive. It's a menu, just click on, I'd like these newsletters from Parks and Recs or Senior or whatever. And it's best to separate them instead of have one huge newsletter, because you might only be interested in certain aspects rather than all of the stuff in the city. So we're gonna address that. David's gonna work on the website for me, and we're gonna get that menu up and working properly so that all of the newsletters can be accessed that way. The other thing that we did after the boil water issue is we looked at and can utilize our utility fee or utility billing system, because it sends out now an automated phone call if you're behind on your bill, that you're on the shut-off notice. And there's a way to do other messaging that way. It goes out text, email, and phone. And we can set up messages ahead of time for things like snow or weather issues, road closures that we know of, or any kind of emergency message. Another boil water notice, hope we never need that again.
Yes.
And things of that nature. So we'll be able to push that out in a format that isn't just dependent on the internet. So folks that don't have access to the internet or check Facebook or whatever, they'll get a phone call directly. So in the next water bill, on the back of your water bill, there's gonna be a letter from me, and in the back of the water bill is a place to, please give us permission to use your stuff this way and sign up for it. Make sure your email and your text messaging and all of the phone numbers are correct. And then we'll put that in the system so that next time we need to notify people, we can do so. So those are two of the things that we've addressed as far as the communication. And of course, we continue to use social media heavily, Facebook, Instagram, and all.
We're using flash alerts as well.
Flash alert, and that's the other thing in the letter, thank you, is flash alerts available. Please sign up for that as well.
Great.
So we'll get the word out in
Yeah,
a
'cause
little.
some people
as
don't
much as we
have,
can.
don't get a water bill. MDUs and
Apartments,
Right.
rentals.
Islands.
Yeah, so, that's where we put that information out on Facebook. We'll put it on the webpage. And then at the next, I think at the next, open house for the SCC, for example, we can have some flyers out for that. We kind of hit folks this weekend, changing gears a little bit, on not only SCC, but also on the Arts Commission. And on all of our public events, I've asked the department heads to please be sure to have things out on their table, and this will be one of them that we can include in the
Great.
future.
What's
Great.
SCC?
Sandy Community Campus.
Okay. Still too new to know the
I know.
acronym.
Working on it.
Speaking of which, so Tanya and I were out at the Sandy Mountain Festival back there on Saturday, and then we were over here at the Food Fair Feast on Sunday and got input. Roughly, I'd say 50 or 60 people we talked to, all very supportive of the community center, the new community center. All are very excited about it. We'd like to keep the momentum going. We're gonna start having some open houses. We did an interactive voting where they could pick what kinds of facilities in the parks they would like to see us prioritize if we have the funds for it. We talked about if they didn't live in the city limits, if they would be interested in any kind of a recreational district. I had everybody but one tell me yes. We asked folks in the city limits if they would support a bond. I had all but one tell me yes.
Same person?
Same person. Everybody was supportive of a utility fee. But because the utility fee survey was last done in 2015, a lot of people have moved in or moved out. I think it prudent to reevaluate the pain point on that and make sure that we're still in good stead with our community on that piece of it. As I've sent out a copy of it to you in advance, the ordinance for that, I think it would be prudent to add police services to that as part of that pie we talked about for making their budget whole. So a portion would go to police services and a portion would go to the operations of the Sandy Community Center. But again, I like to do some surveying, talk to people, and make sure that they're still okay with that before we push that out.
Okay.
But we're getting good support that way from the community. Everybody's like, let's just do it right now.
What sort of demographic range would you say you had on these?
We had probably stroller to 82, and I didn't want to ask her age. She just volunteered. So we had a really good range. We had a good mix of resident and non-resident.
Good.
Most of them were all local, non-resident. Welch's,
Sure.
Eagle Creek, that kind of thing. Lots of support, though. Everybody's very excited about it. They looked at the initial concept and the plans and want to know how we can do it now.
So you think maybe we could do something like get the city citizens through that process and then maybe go after the district?
That's what
in
I'm
another
gonna.
step
That's what I'm
afterwards?
gonna hope for. There's no harm in getting the language written for a bond and getting the groundwork done, because
yeah.
we're gonna be running out of time here to get it on a November ballot here pretty soon. And I'd rather just prepare for it and then do some
Good.
more outreach, make sure people are ready, and then if they are, we're not caught flat-footed or
Yep.
short of time.
Yep.
But I'd like to keep the momentum going and the excitement going about the project and get that going, get that on there. But we can have more conversation about that. I just wanted to give you the feedback of what we found. So Tanya and I did that.
It's very encouraging.
It was
Yes.
very encouraging. It was shocking too. I didn't think that would be the response. I kind of asked the question, would you support a bond? Like that. And, I was surprised, so I stopped being scared after that first few.
Good.
Also on the communication piece, the iCompass, we now have a City of Sandy, Oregon, not Utah, Oregon, YouTube channel, and this meeting, the Planning Commission, the Parks Board meeting, those are all going to start being streamed live.
Okay.
We'll be using iCompass for those. And then the other boards too, we're going to encourage those board members to try to use this facility. So everything will be in one place for all the community
Good idea.
to come and look
Mhm.
at
Good
all
idea.
the meetings, all the videos, all the agendas, meeting minutes and all of that. And then lastly, you guys got my email. My husband and I have decided to put our house for sale. We're fearful that the economy's going to be shifting and the market softening, and we have quite a bit of equity in our home that we'd like to capitalize on. And, home figures prominently into your retirement planning, and so we're going to go ahead and list the house for sale. But I made the email public this weekend so that the city has as much opportunity as possible to figure out a path forward. Andy has agreed to be the interim. My thoughts were we can start working together. If you decide to go out for a process and hire someone, and I'm still here, I can certainly liaise with them. I would encourage you to consider overlap with that new person. But if for some reason I'm not here, if things move faster than I anticipate, then Andy will be able to overlap with that person. If she isn't in the running, that will be her call if she wants to throw her hat in the ring. But so we'll try to be in the area as long as possible. I think the market for something like our place is 3 to 6 months probably. So, but I wanted to let you know ahead of time instead of just give you 30 days. It's not enough.
Thank you.
And help with the process as much as I can. That's all.
Idaho's not that far. It's
Huh?
an hour's flight. That would be a pretty easy commute.
Well,
Two
it-
different airports here,
That's right. And
We should discuss that.
I would entertain, nothing's off the table. I would entertain contracting I mean, my contract is expired in December. I'm doing month to month after that, if necessary. Always available by phone. Whatever you guys need, I will be willing to entertain.
Well, then just stay here. That's what we need.
Okay.
Should we move on that?
If you want
I
to
think we
match
should
any
vote.
lost equity in my home at the time of my retirement, I'd consider it. So.
I think it's going to keep going up, so.
Well, if that's what my financial advisor would say, but that's not what she's telling me, so.
So Mayor, it sounds like we need
it's-
to do a workshop of some kind of.
Yeah,
Step next.
I've got a phone conference set up this week with David Duthman about next steps, and then we'll set up a session for you for that. You know, again, this is purely a financial business decision, and my heart is not in it, but my head is,
Okay.
so.
I just want to know how to retire at 45. I mean,
Oh, you're so sweet.
Is it working? We can keep buttering.
Again, business decision, yeah, so.
So should I be putting my house on the market?
You want me to make a commission? Sure, I think that's a good idea. Do not move out of the city. though.
All right, committee reports. Jeremy, want to start?
I don't have any committee reports.
Okay.
I don't have any committee reports, but I did want to share that I really enjoyed the mining, the Mountain Festival. Learned about some of our volunteer groups that are really great, not only been here in the community for years. I spoke with several people from the VFW, and they really appreciate, one from Mike and his crew, but being able to place the flags out in front as you come into town, and they're hoping to get some more flags placed at the east end of town. So that's something that Mike and I discussed before, just to get some idea on what that would look like.
Yeah, we ran into concrete.
Ran into some, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it shows really well for a city that not only respects and honors its veterans and people who serve. We have a fantastic memorial for Vietnam vets, but just as you come through this town, it shows pride, and I wanted to say thank you. That it is noticed, and there's at least just the local within C&D area, they have over 400 plus members, so that says a lot, and they come into town and see that. So I wanted to say thank you, and keep up the good work.
Jen, we haven't given you a committee. Carl?
I'm just on C4 as an alternate, that's
Oh.
it. But
Do you want-
we talked about
Okay.
that last time.
Carl?
Nothing new on committees.
And Jean, we haven't hooked you up with anything yet. Okay. Council reports. Jean? Council reports. Anything you just want to talk about the city or anything you've seen? Okay, Carl?
Yeah, I have a concern about McCormick Court sidewalks. I see a couple of places where we've done some removal of some concrete, flagged them all out. Looks like we're gonna put them back in and everything. That particular on the south side of McCormick Court is narrow. In fact, there are several post office boxes on stands that are on that particular part of the sidewalk that make it one person only. Definitely, I was holding hands with my granddaughter on the way to go to Mining Park on Saturday, and we could not walk together hand in hand, so that hurt my heart there for a moment. But I even think that there might be some issues with wheelchairs and such. And I was wondering, as we take pieces and parts of that particular kind of sidewalk where they're narrow, I doubt that they're even more 36 inches wide there. Is there a chance of taking some opportunities as we go through that to make them wider so that we can keep that, or move our sidewalks towards being wide enough to get people through there comfortably?
You know, when the power company tears something up, we don't have the ability, and on McCormick, there isn't any right-of-way. We have a 40-foot street, there's a 50-foot right-of-way, so we don't own enough land to widen the sidewalks. So that's the issue on McCormick.
Oh,
So, you know, we have to acquire an easement on land from the 50 property owners along there.
is that right? Oh, so just that little 36 inches is all we've got, huh?
I believe they're 4 feet. I don't think we have any 36-inch sidewalks. There might be a 36-inch clear zone with, you know, because power pole or a mailbox there, but.
Yes,
They're
yeah.
probably 4 or 5 feet, we can make them. So you're talking on McCormick Drive or McCormick Court?
Drive.
Oh.
So, I know that PG has a couple of holes in the ground.
Yeah, anytime that,
To repair those.
anything in that sidewalk on the south side there is just really narrow when you've got those kind of things stuck in the way, so. All
I
right.
mean, we could narrow the street, that would be the way to widen the sidewalk, which is doable, I mean, there's not a lot of parking on the street. It would be, that would probably be the more reasonable solution, trying to get.
Parking on one side,
to,
maybe?
Donate land or acquire land for 50.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, thank you. Got a couple of pieces of property that I haven't heard about lately, the status of the Sandy Heights property, the little.
We have an
corner?
exec session tonight for that purpose.
All right, and how about the city sheds property over on, so,
Yes,
that too,
yes.
that I haven't done.
Jen?
I don't have anything.
Scott, you did
already
pretty much
said
did
one.
that, yep. Jeremy?
No, I just enjoyed the last week, and thank you for all your hard work. Every police officer I'd see would slow down and want to talk, and I was just like, good job, work, and thanks for your hard work. Tell your department as well. I know the whole council is very appreciative.
They did a very, very good job.
And it's probably,
It went really well. It was a
Between-
little hot for them too.
yeah, wearing all the gear between them and Public Works, it's the busiest week of the year, so we appreciate it, and everyone in our community around us appreciates it too. It was a hot one, so that's all I have.
Okay.
I was gonna say, thanks for the council and the city. The pool has been an overwhelming success. A lot
Oh,
of people are using
Agree with
it.
that.
Super pleased with it. Nothing but
It's gonna be $5 in the
Kudos.
beer fund.
Oh, I can't find it either.
Yeah, my kids love that pool.
has
Oh, yeah. My
It's so
grandkids just-
pleasant.
It was great to have it be open as the thing for, 5 hours or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
All right, well, I just have a couple quick things. This year for the parade lineup, I counted no less than 5 couches. This
One
is
right out
starting to
front
get a
here.
little carried
Yeah,
away.
one right up front here. yeah.
And they were not removed after the parade. I'm just curious, did PW have to pick them up?
Yes, and the bill was just short of $50 for disposal.
Yeah, that's borderlining unacceptable. Actually, the couches are unacceptable. That should not be. I mean, when I went through the parade, I was going to snap pictures of anybody sitting in a couch. Nobody even used the darn things. They used that parade as an excuse to dump their garbage, is what they did.
yeah.
And
There's one on City Hall right here. I sat right next to it. No one sat in, but no one could because it was so hot. It was
Yeah.
leather.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, right there.
Yeah.
yeah, that's very disappointed in that. But as far as the Mountain Festival went, that was really the only thing I was disappointed in. It seemed to be very well done this year. It was seemed much calmer than a few of the years we've had in the past. The revelers managed to keep it under control a little bit more. I spoke with quite a few people during the Mountain Festival, and one of them approached me with an idea that I think has some merit that we should perhaps consider as a city, and that is a plastic bag ban. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. She was supposed to come and pitch it herself, but apparently she didn't have the time, or her schedule didn't work out. But anyways, I'm going to throw that out there for council to give some thought to, and maybe staff can kind of look into how that's worked. I heard it's Portland, Seattle, Corvallis. There's been a number of cities that have done it, and I know with my business located where it is, I have plastic bags blowing across the street through my parking lot constantly. And we've all seen the pictures of what's gotten into our oceans and our waterways. This is something that I think maybe we should consider very strongly. So,
Could we add, Kelly brought up the other day to me, straws as well, plastic straws. There's other communities banning plastic straws, and I think McDonald's has already moved to paper straws, is what I understood.
paper straws?
Back to the old school.
Yeah, I don't I don't really have an issue with that. The one thing I did hear that when Starbucks did that, the plastic lid they put on to replace it uses more plastic than the straws did, though. So I don't know that that was really, that was more of a superficial.
We can research
Yeah.
if you want.
You
Yep.
might even be able to ban straws altogether, because it's got the little slots in the tops of the lids.
But the bags, for sure, I think that's something everybody should be. I have them in my trunk. I don't hardly ever remember to take the empty ones into the store with me, but you know, those reusable ones are better anyways. They don't ever tear, you don't drop your groceries or anything, so something to think about. We've only got one planet. And with that, we do have a exec session, so we'll adjourn for 5 minutes and then reconvene in exec session.
Okay.